there have been so many issues and forces that have been kind of the industry's been grappling with this year, from see now, buy now, to questions about pre-collection, to the consolidation of menswear and women's wear shows, to sustainability. And we thought, who better to ask to explore some of these issues than the four people who are shaping the fashion industries in the four of the biggest fashion capitals in the world: London, New York, Milan, and Paris. So I'm pleased to welcome Stephen Kolb of the CFDA, Caroline Rush of the British Fashion Council, Pascal Morand of the Fédération Française de la Couture, and Carlo Capazza. Thank you. The other reason, by the way, this is so exciting is because for many years, I think the rumor is that these cities didn't get along. And I think this is the first time they've ever all appeared on a stage together. But I'll be the first to report to you that the collaboration and communication between these four important councils has, taken a turn for the better in the past couple of years. And I think it's credit to all of you that we're thinking about new ways to explore the fashion system. I'm going to cut the session a little short, so I'm going to keep it quite direct because I don't want people to miss out on their meditation and yoga a bit later. But there have been so many issues raised today, and I just wanted to start one by one with each of you to understand from you, what do you think is the single most important issue that we in the industry need to be solving? We've talked about modeling industry, we've talked about sustainability, we've talked about the see now, buy now. So there's so many things that we're grappling with, and as I said earlier, it's all of you that are in the position to help reshape these things. Stephen, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, I think it always comes back to the relationship with the consumer and the customer, and creating product and presenting that product in a way that the consumer wants to buy it. And when that is disconnected, obviously business is weak, and we want to see businesses grow, and we want to see sustainable businesses. So I really think it's about the engagement with the consumer, and it seems as though there's been some disconnect. And a lot of that has to do perhaps with seasonal clothes not being sold when people want them, or the confusion around when clothes are shown and the immediacy that people might want something. And a lot of that is obviously influenced by technology, which has been a great thing and a bad thing. It's been a great thing because we've been able to tap into it in terms of storytelling and marketing brands to a public audience in a big way. But at the same time, we're giving so much information within a system that is very old. You look at Fashion Week specifically and how clothes have been shown, which has been a market week, a trade event that's grown to be a big pop culture activity. It hasn't really changed in 30 years, but everything else around it has changed. And I think what Avery demonstrated really well with her presentation on Tommy, and I was at that show in the hot, blistery pier, by being disruptive, it's an opportunity to try some new things. And I think what you look at when you look at new ideas is, and I don't see them as challenges, I see them as opportunities. When you look at these new ideas, what I believe in is they're not right for everyone. And so we're now at a period where there are so many different things to try, and people should be, and brands should be trying the ideas that they think are best for their companies and for their businesses.
Okay, so for Stephen Kolb, it's the whole fashion immediacy thing, top issue. Caroline?
Well, I think all of us are in a really privileged position where we get to see sort of these snapshots and insights into so many different businesses. So from, particularly in London, we have a whole host of very young, creative businesses. We also have sort of the big global brands. We see sort of behind some of the scenes in some of the international retailers and British retailers, the online retailers, those that are selling direct to consumer, those that just have a wholesale model, the online media and traditional media. And And so is that what we try and take from that is the opportunity really for the industry to come together and share those challenges. And I think this is a really great platform to air some of those issues that we all talk about. But from the designer perspective, it is really, how do we continue to create that aspiration and demand for the customer? And that's where a lot of the conversations around Fashion Weeks have come from, because, as Stephen said, is that social media has blown open Fashion Weeks that used to be a really closed trade event into something that the consumer is really excited about. And that's great for our industry, because it means that we're reaching a whole new audience. We've got a lot of people that are interested and who are engaging. But then how do we create and keep that interest until the product lands in store is the big disconnect, I think, that everybody's trying to grapple with. And so how do we bring, how do we put the customer at the heart of the business? Is that Natalie's our chairman. It's something she constantly says in every board meeting, but in every meeting with every designer as well. You've got to put the customer at the heart of it, and how do we make that happen? So that might be going direct to consumer. It might also be bringing menswear and womenswear together, because you've got one creative director, you've got, you're selling to the same store, you've got one message. And the opportunity, I think, for us is to share sort of all of those dialogues and conversations and try and see how we can try and make sense of it for the audience that come to Fashion Weeks. Mm-hmm. But the brilliant thing was, I think, what we've seen over the past 6 months is that for those businesses that have gone direct to consumer, is that it's worked well on many different levels for them. And I think sort of the Tommy presentation was a great illustration of that. But it has also meant, from the media perspective, who are a little bit skeptical of what that might mean, that they realise actually the two can coexist. And so while businesses are figuring out what's right for them, it's not that you have to shut out the direct-to-consumer, is that you can embrace that, but you can also support businesses that want to stick to a traditional model while they figure out how to get closer to the customer. And so it's an open dialogue, but it makes our industry really exciting, because it means that we're open to change, and I think that everybody feels ready for change at the moment.
Okay, so another one in the fashion immediacy camp. Carlo, what's the single biggest issue facing the industry?
Yeah, I think that today we discuss a lot about something that we normally don't talk about fashion, and this ethical side of fashion. Fashion, we used to think it is something for the body, and today we said that it's something for body and soul. So if we want to talk to the future consumer, we have to talk about that side of the fashion. For me, ethical means many things. The first point, the first word I would use, answering to your question, is sustainability. As you know, we have a beautiful, incredible program for sustainable fashion in Italy. We have a responsibility. We represent the #1 producer in the world for fashion, for luxury fashion. There is China more than us, but it's not luxury fashion. And in Europe, we are very big. We represent 41% of the all production for ready-to-wear and accessories. So we have a responsibility. How can we make this sustainable? And how can we make sustainability something that is not very theoretical, something pragmatic? So we start with numbers. We said, okay, let's look at the industry, let's look at the ecotoxicological substances, and let's make 360 substances what the industry can do today to maximize the low use of the bad substances. And let's see what we can do in the next 4 years. And this is a program for ecotoxicological substances. We publish these numbers. For the toxicological substances in production process, for the social sustainability, original goods, so traceability, and some other small things like recycling and the use of space. So this is the program. It's a program for years with numbers that we can measure. I would like that our customers, they go in the store, what we said is what they find. And to realize this program, we have many brands sitting around the table. Gucci, Prada, Armani, Versace, Ferragamo, Valentino, Fendi. So many brands sitting around the table every week analyzing really this matter to create those documents. And this is also something to share, because it's something that is not our English is the same UK, France, everywhere. We have to share, because as more we share, as more we are together, as stronger it is. Other point related to this is the IP protection. Intellectual property is important. We cannot talk about fashion and then accepting that there is the law chain that copy the day after, 3 weeks after, what designer they need the 6 months to produce, to create. We have to create also there a
But
movement
Carlo, one second
against
on that. Isn't one of the reasons that people are copying because we don't create the goods quickly enough, or the goods haven't been created, so they're not available. So of course, people want those goods. Going back to what Caroline and Stephen are saying, and then the consumer wants it, so someone creates it faster.
Imran, creation has specific times. I think that fast fashion is good for some products. Actually, is necessary for some products and for some brands. But there is a process in some kind of creation that has extremely a need of time and cannot be submitted to the marketing and perspective, because otherwise lose its sense. So if you want to create a dream, you need the time to create a dream. To copy that creation is easy, but to make that creation is difficult.
Okay. Pascal.
Well, I mean, the two most important things to me are not specific to the fashion industry, but let's say the fashion industry is like a laboratory, a lab announcing the trends of what's happening, combining the rational and the emotional aspects, and then spreading in the whole economy and society. So one thing, of course, and it has been mentioned several times, is the digital revolution. We are just at the beginning, just the end of the beginning. It will continue and developing and increase with an amazing speed. And now we're in digital computing, but even when we go later on, and not too far away, to quantum computing, it will be even quicker. And it has many consequences. It doesn't mean that the physical experience is disappearing, but there is a new balance. And then there's the question of the time of immediacy. We might get back to that afterwards. I don't want to be too long in my first answer. Still watching the age 52. And for the second aspect, I will be brief because I share absolutely what Carlos said in terms of sustainability and sustainable development. The big difference between the both, on the second aspect, the idea of measuring, doing things concrete, advancing is very important. But the difference between both is that the digital revolution is happening whatever we do. It's here. It started with the supply chain revolution, and now it's getting extremely quick. The environmental aspects of sustainable development needs a real will, because, for instance, for the climate change, the concrete effects of any decision takes decades. So then it's always easy to say it will be.
But it's
later
also
on.
Here, right?
And one thing, just one last thing, just to make a link with what has been said this morning, with the digital revolution, on the crisis, the economic and societal aspects, is that it's an immense, well, first, we are very lucky to experience that, but it's an immense centrifugal force. And when we see, that's not the topics of this panel, but still, it's not so often that the politicians talk about what's going on and just put themselves in position to help, to support, at least maybe not to manage, but to do so that it's appropriate by people. So that's another debate, but I wanted to make this connection with this morning.
Okay. One of the key things that all of you preside over is Fashion Week. And I just wonder, going back to what Avery said just now about taking risks and throwing away the rule book and several of the things we've heard today, does it even really make sense, Fashion Week, as it stands anymore? Caroline, you just said that maybe there's a chance combining men's and women's fashion weeks. Both New York and London have only recently launched in the last 5 or so years.
5 year next year.
5 year next year. I mean, can you give us a glimpse? I mean, I know you're all thinking about it, right? Give us a glimpse into what you think the idea of Fashion Week should be now.
I think there'll always be Fashion Week and there'll always be fashion shows. So I don't think we'll see a time where that goes away. I think they're too important, and they're important different reasons for different brands. And I think as we look at Fashion Week, I think, in my opinion, we'll see them less being about the unique personality of each city, but maybe more of a kind of global period of time that shows are happening in cities depending upon the objective of that brand, right? So I look at New York, and we had Givenchy's show a few seasons ago. They were opening up a big store on Fifth Avenue, and that made sense for them. And Acris last season. And so we have Vera Wang in Paris this coming season.
And Tommy's showing in LA now.
Tommy's showing in LA. So I don't think we're so stuck on the geography of where, if you're an American brand that you're showing in New York, or if you're a European brand showing in Europe. I think it really comes down to the objective of who you're trying to reach in a bigger part of your business. And I think it's the same for men's and women's. I think there'll be men's shows and women's shows and men's, and a combination of the two. And as Caroline was saying too, I don't think it's all about show now, buy now. It's not a one-fit-all model. I think people will still do the wholesale model where they're previewing. And a question people always ask is, well, that's going to be so confusing. How are people going to really be able to manage their show schedule? And it's a pretty smart business. People who work in fashion are going to be able to manage it and figure it out.
But it is confusing, Stephen, because
How?
like right now on the Business of Fashion Week site, we have shows coming in for like 3 or 4 different seasons all at the same time. I can't even follow it anymore. Our team is having trouble tagging the shows because we don't understand. And some designers say, we're doing a show, but we won't send you the pictures. You can have the pictures later. Some people say you can report on the show now, and we'll give you the imagery now, but the product is available later. And then other people say, we're doing the show now. You can buy everything now. It's available. So what is it?
Yeah, I don't think it's that confusing, actually. I think it's how you present it. I look at what we do in New York now with marketing campaigns. We just say New York Fashion Week. We don't say season. We don't say date. We don't say anything. It's just Fashion Week.
So it's a moment in the calendar when fashion.
When you talk about clothes and you
Okay.
look at about clothes, whether you can buy them now or they're going to be available in 6 months. And you, as a journalist, you're smart enough to figure out how to organize that and how to communicate that to your readers.
You'll have to talk to my CTO. We have to re-tag everything. Caroline, a glimpse into the future?
I think the main message is that we're open for a conversation about change, because we're hearing a lot of people aren't happy with the status quo. And a lot of businesses are looking for a little bit of direction and things to get behind. And the drivers for that, I've said, have been social media, but it's also people's schedules, is that we see that the media and the retailers are exhausted in traveling, that the immediacy of the collections and, the constant rat run of sort of designing a collection, showing a collection, presenting a collection, doing the trunk shows in store, traveling the world, being present in markets are really important to you, hot-footing it back, making sure you're on board of getting the collection ready again. And so it's part of that is actually, is there an opportunity just to pause and take stock and say, is this just become too crazy? Is there something, actually, if you ripped up the rule book and started again, what would you do?
What would you do?
Well, potentially is that you would, of course, support businesses to be incredibly creative. But the engagement of the show with the consumer that you can't take away from now, there's no point in saying is that we're going to ban cameras at the shows, because everybody has a camera and it's going to speak out at some point, is that building the customer and the consumer into that whole experience makes complete sense. Okay. But how you do it is the opportunity for businesses to be agile, to think about how they do it differently, and to put their stamp of independence on it.
Okay. Carlo,
Well,
look into the crystal ball. What is the future of Fashion Week?
Well, we talked this morning about diversity, and this afternoon too. And this is the situation. It's very fluid. Some brand, they have an image that they can show men and women together. They must show men and women together. Some brand, not at all. Some brand, they are retail-oriented because they are very big, so they don't mind to show too early the collection. Actually, they prefer to show later, so they don't copy so much. And some small brands that are wholesale-oriented, they need to show everything much earlier. So we are facing different situation. Our rules as Fashion Week is to face the reality and try to create a system that works. I tell you something more. I've seen, for example, in the last Women Fashion Week, an enormous increase of presentation, very incredible presentation, because the presentation brings you an experience, goes in that direction. So there is fashion show, experience with presentation, strong event, because they have all their social, whatever. So we cannot imagine something rigid. I think we have to be a little bit more fluid, imagine something that is like that. And, in my opinion, we will have 2 moments. One will be whatever we call it, January, men's, whatever, when we show men and women, chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
And then we have chapter 2, when we show men and women again, but maybe the biggest brand or whatever. And 2 moments each season, and including events and everything like that, because this is the word, is diversity, is this fluid moment we are living. I think we have to adapt to that, otherwise we are not talking about the reality.
Okay, fashion fluidity, okay.
I can say, yeah, we need to preserve this flexibility and this strategic freedom. But at least I want to say 1 or 2 things which are important to us. First, we take care of the calendar the way it is. We talk about this, of course, but this is not because we are traditionalists or anything. But to get back to what drives us. What drives us is what we can consider at the heart of the fashion culture for us, which is, I would say, a trilogy, being a trilogy with creativity and desire and savoir-faire. And creativity and savoir-faire, also with the atelier, it's extremely and it's much linked. And then the question of the desire is quite complex. And the way all this interacts, to get back to this Sino-Bino, there are many things have been said about that. I think first, it's not being condescending to say that we didn't make that choice for most of the brands. They can be capsule, of course, collections, or trunk shows, of course. But then the question is to preserve the trilogy I was mentioning. And the idea of the desire is complex, it's not always immediacy, and we have to take care. It's more global in this social acceleration process. We have to take care of this, let's say, cult of instantness. And that has many consequences, and I think it deserves being thought about, like a number of sociologists and philosophers do. And concerning the consumer, of course, I mean, the consumer is very important. But we have also this conviction that there are different ways of making some marketing. And the idea of being creativity-driven, when you want to preserve creativity and dialogue between different forms of like aesthetics, and just thinking again of what, for instance, Pierre Berger said about that, what Yves Saint Laurent made with clothes. He said he is creating clothes, but it's much more than that. Not everybody is Yves Saint Laurent, but still there is this underlying push and need for creativity. And this has to be very much preserved. And, but when you say Sino-Bino, you can say, I know I'm out of time, but just quickly.
It's fine.
You can say, I mean, it's difficult to be against it because it's simple formula, 4 feet with a repetition, Sino-Bino. And then what does that mean? You disagree. When you disagree, that means that you say, don't see, no, don't see. Or you can see, but don't buy, which is back to the Soviet Union. So, but that's not the point. I mean, the Tommy Hilfiger experience is great and adapted, and I would have very much like to be there for the show and the party and everything, like each of us. And it's probably adapted to the DNA. But when it's a creative brand and everything. But for the way we reason, this is very much this environment which needs time for the desire. The absence is as important as the presence for the desire. Not everything is in instantness. And of course, the link with the savoir-faire and so on, but I stopped. I don't talk about that because you know what I mean.
I understand. Pardon me?
Create a dream.
Create a dream.
Yeah.
Is
we heard that
important.
expression a lot today. fashion's missing its dream.
Create a
And
dream,
dream and, like
instead of
Lee said,
satisfy the
blueprints.
needs. Satisfy needs is another business.
Sense.
Imran, can I just add is that we work very closely with the other creative industries,
Yeah.
and the music industry regularly sit in creative industry meetings and say to industries that may be going through challenges, do not sit still. Is that please learn from the lessons that is that the digital movement just sort of swept away our market, and look at what young businesses are doing and maybe look and learn from that, because they're being really intuitive in the way that they're going to market, and they're the ones that are really directly communicating with a customer that everybody else is speaking to.
Okay, well, Caroline has the last word. But it sounds like... Thank you. Go ahead. It sounds like there's still some things to figure out, but it's really been a
Definitely.
pleasure to have all of you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.